5 days until the midterms, and that means people are watching the polls. But ever since the political earthquake that was 2016 and the Trump movement, pollsters keep screwing it up. Now, the political attacks on the GOP are making it harder than ever to poll accurately. Joining me now is the only pollster, by the way, who correctly predicted Trump's 2016 victory, senior strategist at the Trafalgar Group, Robert Cahaly. Robert, I've had you on my show before. You have a fascinating perspective on this. Why do pollsters keep getting the numbers wrong and underreporting GOP support? It's a pattern here.
Well, it certainly is. And I think part of it is that they keep asking these ridiculously long questionnaires, and they just lose average people. And in 2016, you had shy Trump voters who were hesitant because just to say who they were for, they didn't want to be judged for it. And in 2020, they were a little leery to even participate in polls. And I think this time it could be worse.
Robert, I got about a minute left, a little less. You have a really brilliant strategy where you guys ask the neighbors about how, you ask voters how their neighbors would vote. How does that work? How do you eliminate bias that way?
Well, what we would do is we would just ask, it was a device I learned a few years back, we would just ask people, how do you think your neighbors are voting? It's a projection device, and it would allow people to explain that, yes, maybe I'm for Hillary, but my neighbors are all for Trump. And it let them say they were for Trump without being judged. This year, our fear is that people are not going to be polled that are Trump supporters because all that Biden has said and all the apparent attacks and people coming after them, and they're just hesitant to even participate. I think everybody will underestimate them, including us. Republican turnout will exceed even what we predict.
Folks, listen to me. Follow this man and his team if you want an accurate look at what the election looks like. He's fantastic. Robert Cahaly, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to...
The Democrats made quite a hefty and, well, risky gamble back in this year's primaries, spending millions to boost far-right candidates to the GOP nomination with the hopes of easily defeating them this coming November. Well, now, it appears to be paying off. In Maryland and Pennsylvania, Democratic candidates for governor hold a double-digit lead over their election-denying opponents, while in Illinois, incumbent Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker also heavily favored to win. Joining me now, Harry Enton, CNN senior data reporter, and Paul Begala, Democratic strategist, and Scott Jennings is back with us as well. Talking about this gamble. Paul, you've been pretty critical about this idea of funding these sort of far-right extremist candidates with the hopes of being able to win later down the road. Why a problem to you?
Well, first, it has worked in the past, and I was for it in the past. One of my heroes, Harry Reid, did that in 2010. He helped Sharon Angle, who he thought was pretty extreme. He got reelected, most comfortable reelection he ever had. So I'm not per se against it. I'm against it now. This is not 2010 or 2012 when Democrats did it and succeeded. We have the president, our nation's leader, but my party's leader, saying that the MAGA extremists are semi-fascist. I think he's right. If that's true, then you can't undermine that argument by backing some MAGA extremists in some states. It breeds cynicism. By the way, the MAGA extremists and Mr. Trump are doing the job for us. They're nominating plenty of knuckleheads without Democrats messing around with this. I just think it's playing with fire, and I don't like it. I don't think they need to do it.
Who's getting burned?
Well, I agree with Paul. I think that it's cynical, it's hypocritical. I think it makes Biden look weak. If he's the head of the Democratic Party and he's telling us on the one hand how dangerous these folks are, on the other hand, his committees of his party are spending $50 million plus on it. It makes him look weak. They don't listen to him, like they don't take him seriously, or like he's just being another politician in Washington, D.C. So I think it hurts him. Some of these people are out of their races at this point. Tactically, it looks like it's going to pay off in a few races. I don't know if it's going to pay off everywhere. But I think Biden's, if he runs for re-election, his core argument, he made it in the Big Red speech the other night, these people are dangerous, ultra MAGA, fascists, dividing the country, dangerous. And yet his party is spending money on the very people that he says are literally destroying America. What does that make him? What does that make his argument look like in 2024?
Well, I'll tell you what.
I'll
tell you what the DCCC chairman Sean Maloney had to say on NBC's Meet the Press to explain in part why they're doing it. Listen in.
Absolutely not. Did we put party over country? My job is to win elections for the Democrats, and I take that seriously because the moral imperative is keeping the gavel out of the hands of Kevin McCarthy, who would have overturned the results of the election.
This is happening not only obviously in the governor's races and also in congressional races as well. this is happening in places like New Hampshire, all around, very key states that have a big deal in the 2024 and going forward. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, New Hampshire, right? Don Baldick, who I don't know where exactly he stands on the 2020 election. At this point, he was an election denier. Then he claimed he wasn't. Now I think he's sort of kind of come back to it. You look at the polling there, University of New Hampshire had a poll that came out. Maggie Hassan, the Democratic incumbent there with a clear lead. It's not double digits, but it's close there. It's an 8-point lead, as you see on that screen right there. Chuck Morse, who was backed by Chris Sununu, the incumbent Republican governor in that state, would have vastly preferred, in fact, did endorse Chuck Morse. But now Don Baldick is the nominee. He's trailing in that race. And I guess the argument that would be made if you're a Democrat is, look, that's one additional seat that's not on the table. This is a tight race for control, not just of the House, but of the Senate as well. And as Sean Patrick Maloney said, look, my job is to elect Democrats. That's the job that Democrats want. They want to ensure they have a Chuck Schumer as majority leader. They want whoever would be the Speaker of the House if it's not Nancy Pelosi. That's the job.
So, I mean, is this the idea here, the end justifies the means? And you talk about, you supported it before. The argument I often hear people say before this has been Democrats, they don't play the right game. They've got the Republicans who are more cohesive. They're playing dirty, they think the Republicans are, and they talk about that. And why are the Democrats so concerned with the moral high ground? Do you think it's seeding that in an effective way?
I think there's political problems with it more than moral problems. But the moral problem is some of them might win. Some of them probably will win. And that's playing with fire. It's not the same as the very nice lady in Delaware, Christine O'Donnell, who had to deny that she was a witch when she ran in 2010, and Chris Coons, the Democrat, beat her when Biden became vice president.
Who among us hasn't had
right, that was just an eccentric.
Every now and then.
She wasn't a threat to the Constitution the way some of these extreme MAGA people are. And I love Sean. I have the office next to him in the White House. I love him. But I think all of us are giving the Democrats too much credit for success here. The truth is, you try to monkey around the other side's primary, you're probably going to mess it up or probably not have very much effect. Republicans are perfectly capable of picking crazy people without my help.
But
they're doing it all across the country.
I actually think it was determinative in New Hampshire because I think the last minute investment that the Schumer super PAC made there, I mean, they spent like $5 million to get Baldick over the line. Morse had some institutional support in the state. I think he was tracking ahead. I really do think it was determinative.
It was a race that was decided by just a percentage point. I just got to add, though, when I hear witches, I think of Harry and Wizards. So that's
You looked right in my eye and said witches. I don't know what to say. Maybe it was an Angelica Houston throwback in some point in time. The show was called The Witches. Roald Dahl.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I almost had a blank stare over here. But either way, thinking about...
too young.
Oh, are we? Oh, well, the witch might come out now on that comment. We'll talk about that next, about the Harry Enton, Paul Begala, Scott Jennings. I promise you, it's not quite October. No witches will come out anytime soon.